Today's guest is Sam Berman. He looked at a 4,000-year-old industry built on wooden crates and decided to blow it up. Since founding Lark in 2014, he's built one of the fastest growing engineered packaging and logistics platform in the world. He holds a patent in modular reusable crating systems, and he also helps AI companies, aerospace firms, and hyperscalers. And he did it with no safety net and also while navigating personal loss and isolation and all the trials and tribulations that you might have think of. And then now he wrote a book about the psychology of it called The Militant Mind. So today we're going to unpack some of that, what makes Sam Sam, what got him here today. So Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Leo. Very happy to be here. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Definitely. So let's start things off with what's been the most valuable lesson that you've learned in the past year?
Boy, in the past year, probably a couple of things, actually, if you don't mind me sharing a couple of things
Yeah.
that should come to mind here. I'd say, one, the grind never stops, no matter how long you've been doing this. And two, probably the most important thing is even when you're building something that is paradigm shifting in the world, that actually changes industries totally and it's less expensive and just significantly better, kind of like buying the Lamborghini for the Honda price kind of thing. There's still a lot of legacy thinking that has to be overcome. So if you're the type of entrepreneur, the type of company that's building something that really does change the game, there is something that you're gonna have to overcome, which is the inertia of what was to develop what needs to be. And so overcoming that legacy thinking is something that is gonna be quite a challenge for you. But over time, as you start to incrementally move further and further into the industry, that changes dramatically and you start to become standard versus what was. But in our case, we're overcoming wood crates with our sort of state-of-the-art systems. Those things have been around literally for 4,000 years. You find them in Egyptian tombs, and so that's why it's a very deep trench that we've had to go into. But that inertia is definitely shifting now. So those are probably the two things. One, if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to grind. We always grind. But the other thing is the legacy thinking. If you're one of these sort of building something that does has never existed kind of guys, there's going to be that thing that you have to overcome. But that's okay. Just keep on.
Yeah. I mean, when you solve problems, when you change the world, that's where the value is, right? If you're doing what everyone else does, then where's the value?
Right. I always like to say, we're not starting a donut shop here at Lark, but if we were, they'd be the best damn donuts that ever existed. That's just how we do it. But yeah, when you're doing something that is a totally new kind of thing out there in the world, there is this sort of thinking that people have that's not the way we've always done it. But I always tell them, look, we could build the best horse carts in the world, but no one's buying horse carts. So at some point, the paradigm has to shift. And we're definitely in that mode right now, which is why we're a fairly small company based here in Nashville, Tennessee, but we work with the largest companies in the world and they call us to help them solve our problems because we solve problems faster. And that's really how you have to keep on grinding out, but also do something that other people can't, that the big companies can't do because they have too much, too many layers, too much bureaucracy, too many systems.
Mhm.
We make decisions fast. We get things done. We might fail, but we fail fast and we fix it fast. And so that's how you overcome that. And that's how you stop that thousands of year old inertia.
I like that. Before we continue too, I feel like your intro was filled with buzzwords and stuff. So maybe can you just share with us, maybe in like 2 minutes or less, kind of your background, what you do, how you got here?
Yeah. So my background's all over the map. I was originally born in Georgia, grew up in Los Angeles, had an entire career in the Silicon Valley for over 15 years. Hated every minute of that because if you have an entrepreneurial mind, you cannot stand, being inside of a giant system like that. So I always tried to do things a little more entrepreneurially there. And I started a number of companies from software companies to logistics companies to toy companies to app companies. I'm always trying to do something there. And so I'm just that type of personality. I'm the guy who dropped out of college, so don't have a college degree. Shame on me, I guess. But I tend to think differently as a result. And so we were constantly innovating and reinventing new things. Lark started about 10 years ago. Originally started in California. It actually means Logistics Advanced Research Center. So it's an acronym. And after about 2 years of trying to get it started in California, I realized that as strange as it sounds, it's almost impossible to start businesses in California anymore because of they build a lot of zeros and one type companies, but they don't build physical products like we do, these shipping platforms. Moved to Tennessee, back to my roots in the South. Met my co-founder, Chris Taylor, here, a mechanical engineer from Vanderbilt. Very different personalities, two of us, but that's sort of the thing that makes us great, right? I'm more of a hard charging guy. He's more of the pragmatic guy, and that works together. And by the way, anybody out there starting a company, you need to find partners who are wholly different than you in personality, or else it's never going to work. Otherwise, you're operating in a vacuum. But yeah, started about 10 years ago. Went through all the COVID madness and all that kind of stuff. But we've been steadily growing ever since then. And like I said, we work with the largest companies in the world now. And I think it's going great. Excited to continue the charge, as it were.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And it's such a good point that you sort of saw that hey maybe Silicon Valley isn't the best for a hardware company because they call it Silicon Valley for a reason, right? It's
Yes.
probably most conducive for software. I think taking that leap and moving is a bigger move than people like to remember it to be because I think your geography and your proximity to the people that you're connected to it has far bigger impact on your success than people think.
Without a doubt. I was lecturing in a college a couple of years ago, and afterwards I asked all the students. By the way, I find that funny that I lecture in colleges and I never finished college, but I asked all the students at that time, I said, how many of you think that starting a company, the most important thing is the people that you know and the relationships that you have? And not one of them raised their hand. And the professor was sitting in the background shaking his head going, yes, that is it. And so I think, the people those relationships that you have, those are absolutely key to getting anything off the ground, whether it be a company or an idea of any kind, an institution, a club, whatever you have to be starting. It's those people around you that are most important. And at Lark, the most important thing is our team, right? It's not what the founder's vision is at some point. It's about who you have. Are they willing to grind up the hill with you? Do they believe the vision? Are they good people? That's a really important aspect of it. Are they people with integrity and honor? Are they going to do what they say they're going to do? I would tell you and anybody looking to start anything, those people around you, the single most important thing about them is, are they actually a good person? Are they trustworthy? Because once trust is lost in any environment, you're cooked. And so
Right.
I think that that's probably the most important thing is not just the people that you have around you, but make sure that they're the right kind of people around you. That's critical.
So what's kind of your do you have like a mental checklist when you're talking to someone and you're like, okay, is he trustworthy? Is he this? Is he that? Do you have like some kind of non-negotiables or like the 80-20 of like, hey, just hit these three and the rest will figure it out?
No, I'm 100, absolutely, not 80-20. You're going to have to hit all my check marks. Are you a good person? Are you honorable? Do you have integrity? Because it doesn't take but one stupid mistake to screw everything up, right? It doesn't take one bad decision. It's one bad decision can mess everything up. And so I really look for people who live right, meaning that they take care of themselves emotionally, spiritually, physically. They are honorable to their families. They understand the vision that we're going after and they match that vision. They're willing to work. They don't complain, right? That's what I'm looking for. And we're a fairly small team here, which is good, but finding those people is not always easy. But boy, we've been very lucky and blessed with the people that we have around us. So there's no 80-20 in building what doesn't exist, right? There's no, hey, we can not be the people we need to be sometimes. You need to be that person 100% of the time. In
Mm.
fact, in my book, I have a whole chapter on obsession, right? But people will tell you, hey, you need to have positive thinking and all this kind of like, as you say, buzzword kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's not what it takes, far greater than that. It takes a level of obsession and it takes people who are driven and extraordinary and care about themselves and their families and their legacies and think beyond today and what I can benefit from today that make those kind of things possible. And again, I'm not talking about the hey, we're buying a franchise again. Like on, I'm saying, hey, we have an idea we're going to pull out of our head and out of our heart and we're going to take the clay around us with nothing else but fight and grit and we're going to make something out of this because it must exist in the world. And that's not to belittle or take away from any entrepreneur, anybody who's starting anything, because it's just hard. But when you're doing what we're doing and shifting an entire industry and shifting an entire paradigm away from, say, a wood crate model that has existed forever to a reusable high-tech platform to move the most important products in the world that literally run the world, whether it be server racks or robots or anything like that, that it's really critical that you have that level of drive and consistency and integrity, and that you're just going to go for it every single day. So the people that we look for in that are the ones who are those and live by their hearts and their heads at the same time.
Yeah. So it's good to have a person that, his or her heart is aligned with yours, like, trustworthy, honorable, and integrity, driven person. That's like one piece of the puzzle. The other is like, do they have the skills? Are they able to like bring what the company needs at the time? Like, how does that weigh in? Is it mostly like on the job training for you, like, or do you kind of want them to like come ready to rock kind of thing?
I think with what we do at the level we operate, you have to kind of come ready to rock.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of my favorite quotes was General Patton. He said, "If everyone's thinking alike, someone's not thinking." And so
Mm,
those people, while they have to share your value set, they better not share your skill set. I mean, they can
mm,
overlap a little bit, but at the end of the day, the person who probably is the least skilled is the founder or the CEO of a company, because they sort of have the vision and so forth, where they took the risk, which is great. But like my co-founder Chris is a mechanical engineer. I don't think I could engineer my way out of a paper bag necessarily. Or our operations manager Abbott Lawrence, the guy is just, he's a grinder and he's smart and he just sees things in a different perspective. Or any number of folks on our team all bring a different skill sets. I always tell people to start companies, you have to be bold and sort of arrogant enough to believe you can do it. And then you have to be humble enough to actually do it. And part of that is that you have to be humble enough to know that you don't know everything. Right. And you
mm,
need to be challenged by people. If you're someone who honestly believes you have all the answers, you're never going to make it. If you're someone who knows that you don't have the answers and you have that level of humility where you don't think you're the smartest guy in the room all the time, and you bring in those people who are better than you at those skills, then you're going to succeed. My
mm,
co-founder, Chris Taylor, he and I are very different personalities. I'm very hard charging and aggressive. He's much more pragmatic Southern Tennessee guy, grew up on a farm, but knows mechanical engineering, and kind of keeps me level headed, and I keep us charging forward. And while it creates that friction sometimes, even within the team, if you don't have that friction, you're never going to build what's important. Right. If you're not grinding each other a little bit, you're never going to make that thing better incrementally, even, by leaps and bounds. So it's really important that as the founders or as the C-level guys at a company, that that, hey, sometimes the janitor might have a really good idea on something. Or sometimes, the person that you don't think would have a great idea about an engineering idea says, why don't you just do this thing? And oh my gosh, it changes everything. So you have to really have a level of humility there. Says you're not impressive because you thought about this. You're impressive because you built a team around it. So that's
yeah.
what it's about.
Interesting point that you touched on that founders are the least skills, right? but
Yeah.
but they took the risk and they built it on. I mean, it does occur that some people, like especially founders, they feel some sort of like imposter syndrome or something like that, because they're like, okay, when do I bring on employees, and like, okay, they're more skilled than I am, then like what value am I bringing? Like, how do I comp them properly? Like, how did you guys think through it?
We stayed very small for a long time, and we kind of had to learn things on our own to do them, which is another good thing to be able to do. And we are very cautious about who and when we bring people on, but we do it at the point where we say we're overwhelmed with stuff, right? Like we're working as hard as we can, and we can't do it anymore. And when we bring that person on, if they have these particular skill sets, boy, that's going to be a real bonus to us, because those things are sort of falling by the wayside. And I will say this to everyone, to you or anyone starting a company out there, is go as long as you can before you bring people on, till a point
Mm,
where it hurts, because you're going to really know what you need at that point, right? A lot of people who start companies, they go raise $100 million. We're not that company. We bootstrap this. And I recommend that too for a lot of reasons. But if you raise $100 million and you overhire, and I saw, the dot-com era years ago, they raise $200 million and they would have, skateboard ramps and foosball tournaments and,
mm.
slides from one area to the next, or crying rooms was my favorite one. They literally had crying rooms. Those things never work because you're not desperate enough. You're not putting in the real grind. You think I've got this idea and people are going to beat a path to my door, and that's just not how things work. So the more you grind before you even bring other people on, one, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. And two, you're going to know exactly that person you need. And that person's going to fill multiple roles. So you always have to have that startup mentality. Otherwise, you get complacent and some other startup comes and just kicks you in the butt. And we don't ever want that. So at Lark, in any venture you start, stay hungry with it, and then hire really, really the person that you need, not the person that hey, I'm gonna have someone who sweeps the floors, and then this guy files the stuff, and this guy. No, you want someone who wears many hats and people who are just smart. I don't care what college degree you have. I don't care what you've done in the past. If you're smart and you're a hard worker, you're the guy that we're looking for sure.
Yeah. So when you're like call it a startup or like a small company, I mean, ultimately any company, it's a talent acquisition and retention game, right? Like you need like good people on your team to like make the team go forward. But like how do you attract and retain people if you have like no like I don't know like track record or like way to advertise or something?
I think a few things here. One, earlier what I said, be a good group of people that people want to be around and people they can trust. Two, make everyone a partial owner in the company so that they have skin in the game. We used to do that a lot back in the 90s and stuff, but I don't see that so much now. Make them an owner because ownership means something, right? You're going to take care of a car you own, not the car you rent, right?
Mm,
And third thing is do something cool, right? Like be something that's changing the world that people want to be a part of. Again, if you're just opening a pizza shop, there's a million pizza shops. You can go work for another one. If you're doing what Lark does and changing an entire, entrenched industry, and you're going to meetings with the biggest companies in the world, or you're reinventing new things every day, or engineering new things, or creating. I mean, that's really important that you people want to create, right? They want to build and you're in a company that trusts you to be a part of that solution set, that's what retains people. It's not so much, am I paying you the most? And we take care of our people, but am I part of something that matters? People want to matter. And so at Lark, we're more of a family, right? We make sure everybody matters. We make sure everyone's taken care of, not just financially, but emotionally, spiritually. We know each other's weddings and celebrations and so forth. So really make people matter, not just financially, but in that what they're doing matters to the world and they're building something from the ground up that's important. That's how you keep and retain people. And we've never had anyone leave Lark. So we're doing pretty well. It's not like we have thousands of people here, but people are happy here because we care about each other. And that I can't overstate how much, how important that is. Just care about each other. And that's a
mm,
very, very rare thing in business. I mean,
yeah.
I'll tell you, the thing I hate the most in business, when someone says it's not personal, it's just business. Well, hey,
Mm,
man, it's always personal, right? Like this is my life. I'm dedicating life energy and time away from my family to be a part of this. So make sure it is personal. Make sure you know each other and care about each other. That's the critical factor for sure.
yeah. So true. So how big's your company now?
So we don't give out revenue numbers for a lot of reasons. We've got strangely, we've only got about 20 people that work at Lark, which is
Okay.
really weird given the level of operations that we do. But it's designed that way on purpose. People have multiple jobs. People are tasked with 1,000 different things, and everyone's trusted to do those things. And then we have sort of a concentric ring around those core people of contractors, sort of captive contractors that do work for us. The reason we do it that way is because it allows us to do things incredibly fast. We don't have to wait. There's not layers of bureaucracy and nonsense. I mean, the decisions are made by either myself or Chris, typically within the company. So even if we don't do something right, we don't do something right quickly and we fix it. So it's designed this way in order to become more of an engineering company. So we're solutions. We're not a packaging company per se. We're a solutions company. And that's why large companies come to us and say, we have a problem. Can you help us solve it? And because we're structured the way we are, we're able to knock through things very quickly and solve those problems. And companies just love us for it. Our partners love us for it. And so I think we're going to always follow that model. And it keeps
Mm,
things low cost too. We don't have a ton of overhead. So we're able to provide our product, which is far, far superior to anything on the market and do it at a cost that's sometimes 20, 30, 40% less than the current market. We sort of hit that sweet spot there.
that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So when it comes to building up your team, right? I mean, going from like one employee to like 3 to 5 to like 20. I mean, there's stages to it. Like what's been kind of the biggest like bottlenecks that you had to solve for?
Oh, I think earlier, like I said, just the paradigm shift and coming through that whole thing with the large companies. But in terms of internal bottlenecks, I think it was early on. It's probably the when we were developing our original product line and going through iterations. That was tough because our products are really high tech, but they're very simple. And I'll tell you right now, simple boy in engineering is hard to get to. If something looks
Mm,
simple, it means you put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort. So there were definitely some bottlenecks in trying to get to a final product that the world would really want to use and that these large companies would trust because there's a very sort of high standard when you introduce something new versus something that's existed in the world. And then the other thing was sort of we had to discover that the best way to get into these large companies was to partner with other companies. So we're partnered with some of the largest logistics companies in the world. Gave us a great deal of street cred pretty rapidly because they trusted us and they were known entities. When we first got into this business, we had someone tell us, to Chris and I, we had someone tell us, "Yeah, you guys are like a couple of knuckleheads walking into a gorilla cage with bananas tied around your neck, right?" And I said, "How are you going to handle all these big giants out there just pounding on you?" And we said, "Well, so the best thing we could probably do is 800-pound gorillas everywhere. We find the 1,200-pound gorilla and make friends, right?" So that's what we did. And we realized that these partnerships were really important. That kind of got a lot of that bottleneck or that, well, who are these guys? Why are they
Mm,
impressive? But here's something interesting. Uh, I don't think a lot of people give much thought to, which is big companies are not very innovative. They can't be because they do things by consensus and in layers. Small companies are very innovative, which is why they get bought up by big companies all the time. So, but there's sort of this wall between, well, you're too small to work with us. We love what you're doing, but you're too small to work. We don't think you can handle our scale. For us, in that case, it wasn't true. We can easily handle scale the way we're structured, but for most, that's a truth. So the way that you get past that is you jump into scale and you say, okay, I will go to the guys who have already scaled, who already have these as customers, and we'll just put it as a value added service through what they're offering. And it's kind of a software model. Like think about Oracle or any of those types of things, where they would buy up smaller software companies that had different modules that they would then add. They didn't invent it themselves, but these smaller companies who couldn't get traction on just that one piece would then become part of the bigger operation. And that's how they would get traction. So if you want to do that quickly and get through that bottleneck of, well, we love you, but we don't believe in you, go buy yourself some credibility through these partnerships. That's pretty critical.
so basically, like how you guys kind of initially like got that scale was like you went to the big guys and you're like, hey, here's a kind of value add component that you can tack on to your offerings, and then you can sell it to like their customers and then get like a piece of it.
Yeah, that's correct. And it was a massive differentiator in our business. In the
Yeah.
logistics space, there's not a huge differentiator. Everyone's using the same planes, same trucks. So really, the differentiator was, are you going to be there for me? But what we brought to the table was a reusable crating platform that was cheaper, faster, more sustainable, more efficient, safer, better protection, never damage anything in transit. And we're going to tie it into your services. And suddenly you had something very unique and something very
Mm,
different to the market. And people hear that, right? Oh, well, I've been in this business 20 years. I've never heard this. I've never seen this. And suddenly you have something that makes a kind of a big
mm,
world split, right? So
yeah.
that's really important to do that. And what was interesting is once we started doing that, other companies started coming to us and saying, "Hey, we'd like to partner with you. We see that this works." Or, we've had some of the biggest hyperscalers in the world contact us and say, "Hey, we've got a project for a new crate we need. Can you design it for us?" And so people started seeing us not just as a platform, but solutions provider that could come in and use our incredible intelligence. Starts with me, by the way,
Mm,
incredible intelligence and just background and experience in designing these things and solve their problems that it was too hard to solve internally. So eventually, once you get one and you have that credibility, others start coming to you. So it doesn't take a
yeah.
lot. It takes just that one. And the key is your differentiator. You're a door kicker, meaning that you're the one who's
Mm,
going to go in and do something different than all your competition. And that's going to get you the meeting that other companies can't get. So
mm.
that's key, is being something different in the world, something that people haven't seen before.
Yeah. And so when it comes to like for you guys to like go to market, like how did you figure out your business model? Was it kind of just like trial and error and like, or was it like just from the inception you're like, okay, I'm going to be an add-on service to like these guys and sell it this way?
Yeah, it's funny. When I started, that's funny. The very first email I sent was to someone at Google. And so I'll come out, vice president of sustainability, and asked her, I said, "Hey, if you had a reusable crating system, would that interest you?" And 5 minutes later, I get an email back, "Yes, that would really interest me." I said, "Can I meet with you?" And I went and met with their team, and they literally told me everything that they would love to have. And so that's how we defined our market right there. And then I called someone at Facebook at the time, it was Facebook. And I said, "What would interest you in this?" And they said, "Oh gosh, if we did this, this, and this." I said, "Okay, now we've refined our market space, right? Because we're going after the whales. We're going after the big guys with this." And
Mm,
we knew that our market, the market we were going after in wood crates was just, this is what it is. It was kind of an afterthought. But when you realize there's a billion of these things floating around every day, this is a massive market space. It's very fragmented. And so we said, what if we could standardize, consolidate, bring the sustainability, the protection, all this, lighter, faster, stronger, all that kind of stuff, smarter. You could track it anywhere in the world. What if we could do that? And everyone's like, that's a great idea. And so we focused first on moving server racks because that's what we were born into doing that. And then what happened was other companies started seeing us and saying, "Hey, can I move my robot in your stuff? Or can I move my luxury goods?" I mean, we move rare earth minerals. We move all kinds of crazy stuff now, gold bars and things like that. And so it just kind of expanded from there. I think so. If I were to give advice to you, starting up a business, I'd say focus on one area and attack it hard. Like solve the problem for one area, and then others will follow. Right? It's just like the
Mm,
McDonald's factor. The Big Mac tastes the same as Los Angeles, New York, Moscow, London. Right? It
mm,
always tastes the same. Focus on making the best hamburger in the world. Right? Not that that's the best hamburger, my gosh, but focus on one good thing, and then everything else will start to expand. And then try and build a platform play. Right? What we do is a platform that standardizes, and then we build accessories onto it that now can ship tens of thousands of products. Think about it like a cell phone is it's not really a phone, is it? We call it a phone, but it's really an electronic platform. It has all kinds of apps and accessories and all kinds of other stuff that bolt onto it. But he who owns the platform owns the world, right? So we just made a hard platform for moving very valuable technology. And so it expanded from there. But focus on one thing. For us, it was server racks. Talk to the Googles and the Facebooks and the Microsofts out there, see what they need, talk to your customers. They'll tell you what they need. And then you'll introduce things they didn't even know they needed. And then other people expand. You start getting out of the world at shows or word of mouth. And suddenly you have some of the biggest companies in the world telling other companies, hey, you guys should talk to these guys. And so a lot of reference happens, a lot of word of mouth, and that's how it grows.
yeah. So focusing on one thing, being the best at whatever that is, and then everything else sort of falls in place because success begets success, right?
Success begets success. And not that it happens overnight, but success does beget success. And don't be afraid to talk to the big guys out there, right? They'll tell you what
Mm,
they need. It's a long sales cycle to get into them and change it. But if you just ask and you really listen to what your customer and what the market has to say, you will quickly define what's needed in that space. And we see that when we do demos. When we do
yeah.
demos of our products live, our customer partners are selling themselves. Oh, we could use it for this, and we could also do this and this. And you say, yeah. So it's because it's a platform, you can do a million different things with it. And so they start to upsell themselves on it, which is great. And now you have a partnership. You work hand in glove with them to go solve the problem.
Hmm. So when you're initially reaching out to like the big people or like the employees working at big firms, like how do you reach them? Like, did you have a strategy? Like, hey, look, I'm gonna make a list of like I don't know 50 like large companies that could be a good fit, and then reach out to them.
Yeah, it's really that simple. It's just hard work. Um, and I always tell, especially young entrepreneurs who talk to me, I always tell them, if your plan is to send 10 emails a day, send 100. If your plan is to
Mhm.
send 100, send 1,000. You have to kind of carpet bomb the world with your idea. I always tell people
Yeah.
it's like, magicians have to do magic, right? So if you're going to go out there and talk about your product, get in front of everybody you possibly can and be obsessive about it. And then don't be afraid that you will get responses. I sent emails to CEOs of large companies in the world. They responded to me. So,
Hmm.
people think, oh, that person is X amount of levels above me, or that's silliness. If you're an entrepreneur, you better be as bold as you can possibly be, and to the point of embarrassment, right? Because you're selling a dream. So if you're going to sell a dream, you better act like you're selling a dream.
Yeah, and to take it a step further, I think there's an interesting dynamic I notice sometimes with entrepreneurs or just people that they sort of put you on different tiers compared to themselves. Whereas, like for me, like I always view you as a person. Like we're all people, right? You're not better than me or worse than me. So I think that does help, and like talking to people and like owning the room.
I think you said something earlier. People have this concept that someone is above them, but they don't realize that that person really, at some level, feels like a fraud themselves, right? Like, what am I doing at this level, right? And you know, in my book, I talked a little bit about how people we're all broken in some way. We all have something in us to repair. I mean, that's where real founders come from a wound, right? Like you're trying to overcome something that broke in you sometime. Those are the greatest founders, anyway, the ones who just have no stop in them. And so to think, well, this person's a vice president, this large company, must be perfect, right? They're not. They're just people, and they're looking for good ideas. They're looking for ways to improve themselves and their companies and life and so forth. I say don't put anyone on a pedestal. Don't say that this person is greater than this person. And don't do that to yourself. By the way, don't eat your own dog food and think you're an impressive person. You're probably not.
Yeah.
You're just like the rest of us, right? I think it was Denzel Washington gave a speech at a college one time. I think the first thing he said was, "You're not special,"
Yeah.
and you're not special. What is special is the effort that you will put in. What is special is that you're humble enough to know your limitations and to know that your team and the people around you matter. I think that's pretty special. But
Mm.
you're not impressive because I'm a person of great faith. So if you have been given gifts, that doesn't make you impressive, right? It makes you someone who better use those gifts. So don't think that, hey, this person's vice president of this hyperscaler company and they'll never talk to me. I assure you they will. Just write to them, ask them, say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm looking for information. I've got this idea. Can I talk to you? People are more helpful than most people think.
Yeah. So what's your book about? And what's like the core lesson behind it?
Yeah, so it's called Militant Mind, and the subtitle is The Psychology of Building What Doesn't Exist. And it's the real gritty grind of how someone starts a company or anything in their life. It's not that this is how you raise money, this is how you market. There's a million books for that. What I realized was people weren't understanding the gut wrenching grind, the moments where you don't feel like you're enough, the isolation, the endurance that it takes, the moments where you're just beaten down to your knees because there was another no that morning. This is a psychology. And, I started off by talking about like what I was saying earlier, the fracture that people have. All of us come from something broken, something hard, and many of us feel like we're not enough and we are enough. And so this really talks about, the scar tissue that you build up over time that becomes sort of your secret weapon and turning pain into purpose and understanding that anybody can do it if they just believe enough that they can do it and that there's a purpose in all of it. And that as you're building a company, the company grows as you grow as a human being, for me, as a man, as a husband, as a father, you're intricately tied to it. It's a part of your identity. And because of that, it means that you have to grow in order for it to grow. You have to be arrogant at the beginning, say, I am big enough to do this. And then you have to have enough humility later to say, man, I really need help. And let go of some of that control. But there's, the whole book is to make people understand that this is not that pretty, thing you see in entrepreneurial class. I always kind of laugh that we teach entrepreneurship. It's almost not something you can teach. It is something you are, right? It's something you become. And people think, well, we go and raise the money and, this thing happens and this thing happens. What they don't see is the 10,000 things that are just beating you down every day that make you feel small, that you don't understand why the world's not using your product and beating a path to your door. Or the hardest part actually is when your past comes back to haunt you and those voices are in there saying, well, you're not good enough for this. You can't do this. It might be the voice of one of your parents or a teacher or a coach, or the worst part is it's your own voice and it's saying, "Hey, you can't do this," and how you overcome that. I don't want to go in and look at these guys. They built this $1 billion enterprise, except that they were given $1 billion to start it. I like those sort of hard grinding redemption stories of people who said, I was beaten down to nothing. And I will tell you, Leo, at one point, I literally was beaten down to nothing. I had nothing. And I talk
Mm.
about the first couple of chapters of the book where I was absolutely crushed in my life. And I had to come from that space and dig deep to find out who I was and rebuild my life. And that made me the person I am today, allowed me to build something like Lark, to build something that didn't exist. Because if you think about the idea of something that doesn't exist, the only place it does exist is in here, in your head. And making that exist here in the real world, you better be a grinder, man. You better be someone who no matter what the demon voices are saying in your head, no matter how many times, you didn't feel enough or whatever failures you had and you've overcome, you better be that person that can keep on doing it. And if you are, I guarantee you, if you do not quit, 100% of the time you will succeed. But there will be time, I've seen a million people quit. It's a very rare person who says, no matter what it takes, the pain, the purpose, the anger, the frustration, the long nights, whatever it takes, we will win 100% of the time. And I'm an old guy. I will tell you, I've never seen someone fail. If they truly are that person in that group of people, they will win no matter what. And that's
Mm.
what the book's about. You have to have a militant mind. You have to be militant
Mm.
about what you're doing and you have to overcome your own psychology. Once you win that war, in your own headspace, any other war outside of it's pretty simple.
Mm. So two follow-ups to that. First off, when you're talking about just persistence, right? I mean, picking yourself up and like keep on going and keeping on swinging. So there's somewhat of a kind of dichotomy of persistence and recklessness, right? I mean, like if you just like keep on swinging, you might swing in the wrong direction. You might not do things the right way, just in kind of like desperation of like trying to make something work. So like, how do you balance that? How do you like figure out, okay, what is the actual right move?
My answer to you is, so what? What if you do? What if you do swing in the wrong directions? Now you've learned how not to do something. You've learned it doesn't work. Right. People look at failure as if it's some kind of negative thing. Another interview recently, I said, this is why I can't stand school, why I was such a terrible student. Because schools teach you that failure is failure. Oh, you failed a test, you're a failure. No, I just didn't do
Mhm.
it the way you wanted me to do it. Right. And so somehow people have gotten in their head that I can't go wild and swing in 1,000 different directions. I actually beg to differ. I think you have to have inner obsession and go in a million different directions until you find what works and what doesn't, right? Just do it quickly. Don't waste time. And, this idea of sort of work-life balance, that's a mirage, right? Like you got to go hard at this stuff because you got to believe in it. So I think that's a little bit of people making excuses, to be honest. Well, if I'll just fly, if it's not perfect, I tell my team all the time, hey, stop polishing the brass. Let's get this ship out of port. Right? And if it's got a leak, we'll bail it out and seal it in the water. We'll change directions as we have to. But the trick is action, action, action. Just keep on moving. Get in the race car and drive as hard and fast as you can. And if you crash, so be it. Go get another race car. But you have to be that kind of person. It's not saying be reckless, but what it is saying is go hard and get going. Stop talking so much. People talk too much. I have a great idea every day. Every day. People, I have a great idea. What are you gonna do about it? I'm just gonna have a great idea. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll try have another great idea tomorrow. So what? What are you gonna do about it? So I do think that swinging in a lot of different directions, right? I mean, this is a war, man. So, sometimes you got to fight that war on a million different fronts, and eventually you're going to find your path. But you got to dig, and that doesn't mean go out there like a crazy person, but it does mean take action at a level that you can't even explain, to the point where people are, hey, man, maybe you need to tone it down a little bit. Maybe you need to calm down a little bit. And if I swear, I wish I had $1 for every time someone told me I was too intense or too angry. I wouldn't have to start companies because I'd be very, very,
Mhm.
very wealthy. And you can't care about what people think. People are going to call you crazy. They're going to call you unbound. They're going to call you off the chain and all this kind of stuff. But so what? No, if you care about what people think about you, like in that level, don't get in this game. Because people they're always going to try and tear you down. They're going to root for you and root for you and root for you until you make it. And then they're going to tell you, yeah, but that guy, this guy's not that great. So don't worry about what people think. You swing in a million different directions. Go for it. Because would you want to fight a guy who is swinging in a million different directions? I certainly wouldn't want to. So they're taking action, right? And
Mhm.
they may like off the hook, but they're doing something, and that's the key. If you're not an action oriented person, just go work for somebody else. If you are willing to take massive action, go for it. That's a
Yeah.
militant mind. That's what
Yep.
that is.
Very well said. So, okay, you've obviously come a long way to be here today. What's kind of one thing that you believed at 30 you don't believe in anymore?
That's a good question. Wow, you caught me off guard with that one. At 30 that I don't believe in anymore, that you have limitations, that you have limitations. I think the
Mhm.
world, especially when I was 30, it's a long time ago, but when I was 30, the world was structured in a way that the big companies, you did this, you kind of got the college degree and you worked the process and stuff. I think I sort of still kind of believed in that at 30. I don't believe in that at all now. I do not care what your background or where you come from. I care about your grit. I think what I believe now is I would just take massive action and fail a million times quickly than try and make sure I dotted every I and crossed every T. And that's if you're stagnant, I always tell, I look at this and I say, if there was a stagnant pond, would you drink the water? No, but you drink it out of a flowing creek. Be that flowing creek, right? Be that person who's moving. I used to believe that, I used to believe more in structure and in the system and the way things work. I don't believe in that at all now. Like not even a little bit. I think it's all old and stale and stagnant. I want more entrepreneurs out there. I want more free thinkers. I want crazy ideas. So and I'll tell you one other thing that I used to believe at 30. I don't believe at all now because I was in the Silicon Valley at 30. The word disruption. I cannot stand the word disruption. We're going to disrupt this industry. I don't want to disrupt it, man. I want to destroy it. And
Mm.
here's the reason why. Disruption, I give this example a lot, is little Sally chewing gum in class has disrupted the teacher. Okay, we can fix that. That's a disruption. But destruction is little Johnny burning the school to the ground and saying, we're starting all new because this system's terrible. So I am a person who believes in creative destruction. And a lot of younger people don't even understand that term anymore, that you must have creative destruction. It is the baseline of economies, right? You have to be willing to destroy what was to build what is to come. And that doesn't mean you just make things incrementally better. It means you change the entire structure, the entire paradigm. So that is a massive shift in my philosophy. And I know people kind of look at, wow, you're very aggressive. Like, yes, yes, I am very aggressive, but that's what it takes. As I mentioned earlier, we're not riding horse buggies anymore because we can make the best ones in the world, but we are driving cars that run on, hydrogen or something, right? That's breaking the limits, or batteries, or whatever. That's a big, massive shift in my thinking, and much more aggressive type of thinking. So that's probably the
Yeah.
biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also what makes the world great is innovators, right? We have to continually push the envelope and do things the new way, and the best one will win, right? I mean, it's a free market, and if there's value, dollars will happen, transactions will happen, and the right direction will occur.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. We call it capitalism. Yeah, it is. We need to get back to even more free markets, right? Let's get in the cage and fight it out, right? Let's let the best man win, right? We need to get more of that. So absolutely,
Mm.
that is absolutely what needs to be happening. And as we see innovation at breakneck speeds right now, it could be even more so if we just let the dogs off the chains, right? And let them go. And the governments and so forth made entrepreneurship even better, give us tax breaks and all this other stuff. Let's really foster that thought process, especially here in America. I mean, this entire country, we're 240 years old, and well, I mean, look at us. What other country's done that in 240 years, right? It's because we're just free thinking, kind of like wild people, and that's kind of what it takes out there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's what makes it fun. You know,
Yeah,
I moved to America when I was teenager, and yeah, that was like a huge thing to take in. It's just like this kind of liberation of that you can live your own truth and really be unapologetic in how you live, and just people will accept it. And like, look, if you create value, value will occur, you'll get money. And that's great.
and we need to take that idea again and make it the number one thing out there. I mean, our schools are so anti what you just described now. Everything is so rote and so standardized. And if you draw outside the lines, you get slapped on the wrist, right? We need to look at the whole education system we have
Mm.
differently, because we don't, like, we want to build robots. We don't want to be robots, right? And we need to just, if you just let people do their thing and just let them go wild with ideas and imagination, next thing you know, we're all in flying cars and shooting laser beams, and like the whole thing's cool, right?
Yeah.
But we're holding ourselves back, and we need to unleash that.
Yeah, definitely. So to round out the conversation, two more questions for you. So how can folks get in contact with you? How can we help you? Who are you trying to meet?
Yeah, to get in touch with me, you can just email me. I'm gonna give you the shortest email address in history. It's Sam, SAM, at Lark, LARC .co, not com. Always joke that we don't have the com because when we started the company, we didn't have the money to buy the M, but it is Sam at Lark.co. And you know, first of all, thank you for the time. I love sharing my story. I love sharing what we're doing here at Lark. As far as helping me, just talking to people out there like this always gives me a thrill, and lets people know that, hey, what we're doing is making this guy makes crates. How unsexy is that? Well, we move billions of these things in the world. That's pretty sexy, right? Suddenly. The least sexy companies are the ones that do great. I would love, just like I said, to talk about my book a little bit, Militant Mind. It's going to be out in a couple of weeks on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and all that kind of stuff. Would love people to read it and pass it on and learn something from that. And then if anyone out there needs our crates, we would love to talk to you. Just shoot me an email. I'd love to, I get a ton of emails, try to answer everything as quickly as I can. I do get to them all eventually. So very open to that. Someone told me, "Oh, don't ever give your email out on these things, man." Here you go. Call Sam at Lark.co.
Nice.
Yeah, would just appreciate the opportunity to be out there talking about what we do. So thank you for this.
Absolutely. So what's one question that you want me to ask the next guest?
Wow, that's a good question. Wow, man, I got to think about that for a second. Probably something in the area of, what have you done to truly change the world? I mean, what have you done that, like Steve Jobs said, put a dent in the universe? Why does what you're doing truly matter to the world? Something along the lines of that, because I don't think people think big enough.
Hmm,
Is what I'm doing actually world changing? Yeah, I want to know how much bigger they can think. That's what I want to know.
I love it.
Big thinkers take on big partners, take on big ideas, and change the world in big ways. So I think is a question that needs to be asked.
I love it. Well, thanks for coming on, Sam. This is
Yeah, I
amazing.
love it. And thanks.